This is Histories and Mysteries. I'm one of your hosts, Ashley, and this is
Jessica. And on today's episode, Ashley's going to be talking about Typhoid Mary, and I'm going to be talking about Bloody Mary.
the episode of Marys.
Woohoo! Yay, Marys!
Yeah, sorry if you're a Mary out there. These two are not great people.
No. And I'm going to be talking about the game Bloody Mary that's kind of like played by sweet little young teens everywhere and the history of the game.
Did you ever play the game?
I don't think so. Like I think like this is gonna sound so weird. Like I was in drama camp at like the YMCA.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys have the YMCA?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. So it was at the YMCA. It was like a summer camp. Like it was just a drama camp week. And some of me and the girls like went into the bathroom and we were like messing around. I don't think we like did it properly, but it was just fun. I think I like actually chickened out, but
yeah, I've always been too scared to do it. Even when I was like, it's so funny because like I obviously love scary things doing this podcast. I love scary movies, but like I'm such a chicken.
Yeah,
like I never did the Bloody Mary. I was too scared.
Well, it's funny because I watched the Supernatural. The very first episode of Supernatural I watched was the Bloody Mary episode.
Oh yeah,
and it messed me up. First thing I said was, "Oh, those boys are cute," and then the second thing was, "Oh my goodness, I'm scarred for life." So, and then I like was always scared to like walk by my bathroom mirror at nighttime. Like,
I know.
I'm not gonna look.
I know, so I have to get up and use the bathroom a lot. And in the night, and I have to walk past a mirror, and then like if I go to wash my hand, or when I go to wash my hands, I like look down and I don't ever look in the mirror, and I always just like picture like whatever's trying to get me in the mirror getting really frustrated because I won't look at it.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like whenever I drive by like the cemeteries at nighttime or whatever, and I'm like listening to podcasts about spooky shit, and then I'm like, I just don't even look in their general direction. I'm like, I don't believe, please don't hurt me. Like,
leave me alone.
Yeah, please don't get in my car. Because like another Supernatural episode, I think it was like their first episode was A Lady in White.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was super creepy.
It was so creepy. So like I'm always afraid to like look in my back seat and that some creepy ass chick's gonna be back there wanting to hurt me.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
So like, yeah, it's horrifying.
Well, my Mary story is not scary.
Okay.
It's frustrating, but it's not scary.
Well, that's good. I don't think mine's like super scary because I go into like the history of it more, but
gotcha.
And like the science behind the game, but it's the game still creeps me out. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, supernatural stuff is pretty messy, so
yeah,
fascinating 100%. But messy and scary.
Yes, I think it scares me like because you just like whenever I watch my favorite scary movies are like kind of like hauntings or exorcisms, that kind of stuff. I'm not a huge fan of like the chase you around slasher ones. And I think it's because, like, obviously humans are terrifying. Serial killers are terrifying. But, like, we kind of understand them in their brain. But, like, supernatural, you can't understand it. Like,
exactly, yeah.
You know, so much scarier, I think, for me.
It is scarier. Like, it's just, I don't know, because, like, the slasher ones, they can actually, like, potentially happen, right? So
right.
So it just makes it a little bit more psychological and terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
My friends and I in high school, we watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then we went to a haunted barn, and the last like room of this haunted barn are people with like masks, and they have chainsaws, which are on. Like they always have the chains and like the guards on them and stuff, but like, and then they were like literally touching us like on the legs with like these chainsaws, and it was like the most terrifying thing ever.
That would be really scary after watching. I don't know that I've ever seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's wild.
Just because, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of like slasher chase you down movies. They don't scare me as much as the creepy like haunting exorcism ones. So I don't watch a ton of them. Like I've never really seen many of the like Jason movies or Freddy Krueger or anything like that.
I think Jared Padalecki is in like the newer remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Okay, well, I might watch it now.
Yeah, I think it was like early mid 2000s, but yeah,
He's so adorable.
he
I love
is.
him.
I got a black eye at that haunted barn too.
You got a what?
I got a black eye. Not like
How'd you get a black eye?
it wasn't like a major one, but because you like walk through this like really dark room, obviously, and there are people that are grabbing you from like the floor and like they're hanging and like just grabbing at you. And one of them hit me in the face by accident.
Oh gosh.
So I'm like, okay. Like, I mean, I might not have gone a black eye. I'm pretty sure I did, but like I said, it wasn't like a major one, so it wasn't like
Yeah.
around forever, but I do remember it being pretty traumatizing.
I bet. Jeez.
So, yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, Typhoid Mary. I do talk a little bit about because she supposedly haunts a couple places, so I do talk about that a little bit, but it's nothing like crazy. But I got my information from Wikipedia, obviously. There's a thing called Coalition Against Typhoid. So I got some information from that, and then I've got American Hauntings Inc. and it's INK, not INC. Yeah. And New York City Ghosts. I guess they do like ghost tours and stuff. So I got some of their information from that as well.
Cool.
So Mary Mallon, I think that's how you say her name. It's Mallon. We'll go with Mallon. She's long dead, so I don't think anybody's going to be coming at me about that. But
No.
Mary Mallon, aka Typhoid Mary, was born in 1869 in Ireland. Her mother had typhoid when she was pregnant with Mary, so that's how they think Mary got typhoid was through the womb. 15 years old, she moved to America where she lived with her aunt and uncle and worked as a maid. Eventually, she moved on and became a cook for pretty wealthy families. And this is where it all went downhill.
Fun.
She worked for about 8 families, 7 of which developed typhoid fever. So only one family left her unscathed. But what is typhoid fever? Because I wasn't sure. I mean, it's not something that's prevalent in our countries. It's usually found, in poor countries that don't have great sanitation, great water. So I wasn't really sure, but it's a bacterial infection. It causes high fever, diarrhea, vomiting. It's often passed through contaminated food and drinking water. So her being a cook was the perfect transmission for the bacteria. And there is a vaccine in most countries, but obviously, and you can generally combat the bacteria by sanitizing procedures that we have and hand washing and stuff like that. But it is a pretty big deal because in 430 BC, before they had a vaccine, before they knew about hand washing and sanitizing, it killed 1/3 of the population of Athens in a plague.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big deal. But nowadays, again, we don't hear about it too much in more well-to-do countries. So Mary was a carrier of this disease, so she felt fine. She just carried it. She didn't have any symptoms. And prior to this, they had never heard of that. That hadn't been a thing. Like, you either had it or you didn't. Carrier wasn't like a known thing. So
Yeah.
she was actually the first person in America to be a carrier of it.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. Poor Mary. And it spreads through your feces. So and because she was a cook and she didn't wash her hands, she would spread the bacteria to her employers. Because at the time, hand washing wasn't as, like, they didn't really understand it as much. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, rich families were more sanitary and more clean. But it just wasn't that prevalent back then. So I know it's really gross, but Within 2 weeks at her first job, the family came down with typhoid fever. And, after infecting that family, she moved to Manhattan, where she infected the next family that she worked for, and the lady who did the family's laundry actually died from it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So she then went to work for another family, where 7 of the 8 people in that family became ill with typhoid fever. She moved on again, and this time she worked for a lawyer and his family, but the family and the servants stayed in separate quarters. 4 of the 7 servants became ill, but the family didn't. When you cook out the bacteria, but she used to make this, like, dessert that she was famous for, which was, like, ice cream and peaches, and she
Yum.
would cut up the peaches and put them in there, and those were raw, so that's how they think she majorly, um, transferred it to others. So, I don't know if maybe she just didn't make that for the family, but, like, being in the proximity of the people she lived with, that's why they got it. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
So after they got it, she again moved to another family. And again, 2 weeks later, the laundress for that family became ill. And so she moved on again. She moved to another family, this time in Oyster Bay, which I guess is that kind of New England area. And this was in 1906. And 6 of the 11 people in that family became sick with typhoid.
Wow. Did any of these people die, like, other than that one person?
Yeah, she is thought to have caused 3 deaths.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually, like, not bad considering the amount of people that she infected.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you gotta figure most of the people that she infected were rich.
That's true, yeah.
So, they had, really good medicine and stuff like that. But, I mean, for as famous as she is, she only really killed 3 people, and I think
Yeah.
they said she infected, like, 51.
Wow.
But, yeah, so this family in Oyster Bay was kind of where things kind of started going downhill for Mary because the landlord felt that it would be really hard to rent this house out if people knew it as, like, the typhoid house. Like, this
Yeah.
whole family got typhoid. So he hired a bunch of independent experts to come in and test the entire house for bacteria. And they found nothing because obviously it wasn't the house, it was Mary. But Mary didn't know this at the time. So, like, she's going from family to family infecting all these people, but she didn't know. She felt fine. There was no such thing as, like, a carrier,
Yeah, but how do you not know that? Like, I mean, would you not assume?
Each place I go, these people are getting sick with the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
So she continued on to another family, and soon after, the maid became sick, and her employer's only daughter died from it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And one of the investigators from the previous house had been looking into all these infections in these well-to-do homes because typhoid in rich homes was generally rare because they had better sanitation. So this was generally found in poorer areas. So once he started looking into typhoid at this house, he was like, there's been other pretty well-to-do families that are getting typhoid. Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
So he started looking into it. His name was George Soper. And he started to realize that all these houses had one thing in common: Mary.
Yeah.
So he finally tracked Mary down and told her, like, hey, I think you're spreading this disease. Every family you've worked for has gotten typhoid.
Oh my goodness.
And he says that this infuriated her and she threatened him with a carving fork.
Oh my goodness.
So Mary refused to give any samples. So Soper compiled a 5-year employment history of Mary Mallon, and he found that 7 of the 8 families she had cooked for had contracted typhoid fever.
Wow.
But Mary still refused to give samples. She said that typhoid was everywhere and the outbreaks happened because of contaminated food and water. Like, yeah, because you're contaminating them.
Yeah, literally.
She continued to deny any involvement, so Soper took his findings to the New York City Health Department, and their investigator realized that she was a carrier of typhoid. She was the first one, and so they're like, well, she has typhoid, but she feels fine. Like, she doesn't have any of the symptoms, but this lives in her, and she just spreads it to everybody else. And apparently at that time, you could arrest someone for being a public health threat.
Oh my goodness.
Kind of wish we could still do that.
Wouldn't that be nice? Ugh.
So Mary was actually forced into an ambulance by 5 policemen and a doctor. And at one point, the doctor had to sit on Mary to restrain her because she was like going so crazy.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
I know.
Just like picture someone just like sitting on a suitcase to try and close it.
Yeah. Calm down, ma'am.
Yeah. Let me just sit on you. Don't mind me now.
Yeah. So she was taken to a hospital where she was restrained and forced to give samples. She was under constant surveillance and wasn't even allowed to go to the bathroom alone.
Oh, jeez.
So they obviously found massive amounts of bacteria in her feces, and she confessed that she didn't really often wash her hands, which
Ew.
again wasn't unusual at the time, but yes, still very gross. And they were actually able to pinpoint that the bacteria lived in her gallbladder.
Oh.
Yeah. So she was quarantined on North Brother Island, and it's an actual island, so it's, surrounded by water, as islands are. And she had to give a stool and urine sample 3 times a week.
Wow.
Doctors also suggested that she get her gallbladder removed, but she refused because, one, she still didn't believe she carried the bacteria. So this is where I get frustrated with her.
Yeah.
And 2, gallbladder surgeries back then were pretty dangerous and people would regularly die from that surgery.
Yeah.
So she didn't want to do that. And while she was being quarantined, Soper published his findings of her being the carrier, because it was the first one, so pretty unusual. And the media picked up on the story, and actually they were the ones that gave her the nickname Typhoid Mary.
Oh, wow.
So she was pissed.
Well, no doubt. Someone that doesn't believe that they have something, and then...
Yeah. And Soper actually visited Mary while she was in quarantine and told her that he wanted to write a book about it and that he would give her some of the money from that book.
Oh, I was going to ask if they fell in love.
Oh, no. Because she refused and locked herself in the bathroom until he left, so.
Oh. Understandable.
So at this point, again, she still didn't believe she was a carrier. She did have a friend help her smuggle out samples into an independent lab, and they all came back negative.
Oh.
So, and also a quarter of her samples came back negative from her quarantine samples that she was forced to give.
Oh.
So, but I don't really know the bacteria, is it going to be in every single stool sample you give, or, does it only shed sometimes? I'm not really sure. But I mean, she definitely had typhoid because they found the bacteria in her multiple times.
Yeah.
But having that independent study come back saying she was negative fueled her idea that she didn't actually have it.
Yeah, of course.
So after almost 3 years in quarantine, the New York State Commissioner of Health decided that, carriers of any disease shouldn't be kept in isolation, and that Mary was free to go as long as she agreed to not cook anymore and take reasonable steps to avoid transmitting typhoid to others. And she agreed. She signed an affidavit saying that she would no longer cook and she would take hygiene precautions. And she stayed true to her word. For a little bit.
Of course.
Yep. She took a job as a laundress, but it paid significantly less than being a cook. So as a cook, she made about $50 a month, which, adjusted for inflation, is now about $1,287 a month.
Oh, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad, yeah.
Basically
but as
minimum wage.
Yeah, for sure. But as a laundress, she only made $20 a month, which is now only about $515 a month.
Oof.
So that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
At one point, she did hurt her arm and it became infected, so she had to take 6 months off. And after that, she had a hard time finding another job, so she went back to cooking. She used fake surnames such as Breshoff or Brown. And at this point, the families, I guess they just weren't needing cooks, so she couldn't find a job as a cook for families. So she started cooking in hotels, restaurants, and spa centers where she came into contact with so many more people.
So many more people.
Yes. And obviously there were always outbreaks of typhoid where she was, but she would switch jobs so frequently that they couldn't keep up with her and find her. In 1915, Mary took a job at a hospital for women where 25 people were infected and 2 died from the disease.
Like,
so
at
I
this
guess,
point, would
she had
she
4.
not realize?
Right? Like, everywhere you go, people are getting typhoid.
Yeah.
So I guess there was 4 people that she killed then. My bad, not 3.
Hmm.
The head of the hospital called Soper because he was kind of like the guy to go to for typhoid and was like, hey, can you help me figure out the cause of this typhoid outbreak? And he went in and he saw Mary and he's like, hey, that's Typhoid Mary. Like, that's why.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and she tried to flee, but the police found her and arrested her and she was forced back into quarantine.
Good.
Yeah. So she was allowed, like, towards a few years into her second quarantine, she was allowed to take some day trips to the mainland, but had to remain on the island, like, where she lived. And people were not very kind to her at this second quarantine because she didn't listen the first time.
Looking
So
at you,
they were mad at her.
America.
Right? So they were mad at her. And so they were not very nice to her, but she ended up having a stroke.
Oh.
And then a few years later died of pneumonia at the age of 69 in 1938. And only 9 people attended her funeral.
Wow.
Yeah. So this island that she was forced to live on, it was a lot of things throughout the years. So it was a quarantine hospital. And then it became a hospital to treat contagious diseases. So kind of another quarantine hospital. It was like a quarantine hospital, and then it housed World War II vets for a little, World War II vets for a little bit, and then it did something else, and then it became another hospital to treat contagious diseases, but it never got to the point of like housing anybody because it closed and was abandoned in 1963. The island itself is abandoned. You cannot go there unless you're like a researcher or a scientist because it houses a rare bird that's protected.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, so you're not allowed to go there. But obviously people, sneak over, which don't do people, but they do. Because I guess it's pretty creepy because the same buildings are there. It has the gaslit lamps along the street. It has its beaches that are like littered with cookware and glass bottles from the hospital, but nature has overtaken most of this. So it's just like really rundown buildings, like an abandoned city with like vines and trees and stuff growing through it.
And where is this?
It's called North Brother Island. I think it's right off of New York City, like the coast of New York City.
Yeah.
And people who have been allowed to visit, again, mostly scientists and researchers, say that it's a really creepy place. Like, it just has a creepy air about it. The people that were living there, they had a crematorium on there. So, people died on the island and they would cremate them there. And so it's supposedly pretty haunted. And many visitors say that they have seen the ghost of a woman wandering the hospital. Staff of the hospital before it shut down said that they also would see this ghost of a woman wandering the halls, and one orderly followed a woman down a hall and into a room, thinking like one of the patients were lost. She hurried to the room and no one was there.
Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah, and some say that when you're in the presence of Mary's ghost, you feel fever-like symptoms, hallucinations, abdominal pain, weakness, headaches. You'll have vomiting and diarrhea, and they said red spots flowering over your chest, like she is projecting her typhoid onto you.
Which is funny because she was always like, "Oh, I don't have any symptoms. I don't feel anything." And then
Yeah, and now her ghost does.
yeah.
And that is the story of Typhoid Mary. I know it's kind of short, but
No, it's interesting.
yeah, she's basically just a bitch that wouldn't listen.
No, I really liked your story. It's located in the East River of New York.
Oh, perfect. I did not look it up. But...
I did.
Are there creepy pictures of it?
I don't think so, because I just looked up North Brother Island. Like, it would be really cool to visit.
Oh, there's one picture. Oh, that's cool. I'll show you.
It looks like I see. I'm looking at them. It's like the
okay
abandoned ruins and stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That'd be really cool to visit.
Yeah,
let's go.
And I love Jessica,
but I want to, Ashley.
Birdie's there.
Don't tell me what to do, man. Okay, so do you want to hear about my Bloody Mary story?
Of course.
Okay, so I used some sources. Can we guess which one it was?
All that's interesting?
Yeah. And the author was Chrissy Howard. I also used SmithsonianMagazine.com, and the author was Milan Soley. And How Stuff Works was Deborah Ronka. I got a little bit of info from And That's Why We Drink. Not very much, but just I probably used like a bullet point, but
gotcha.
Mindhacks.com. The author was Vaughn Bell. And mentalfloss.com. The author was Emily Petsko.
Ooh.
So I'm going to start with like the potential origin stories.
Okay.
So the folklore may be fake, but there is a person behind the name Bloody Mary, and that was Queen Mary the first queen regnant of England. And Ashley kind of mentioned her last week in our King Henry VIII. Yes.
Also, it's pronounced regent.
It's not.
Are you sure?
Yes, there's regent and there's regnant. I 100% found the pronunciations.
Okay, all right, good. I just didn't want you to say it and then have it be wrong. So
no, so regnant is reigning or ruling.
Oh,
and then regent means a person appointed to govern a state pro tempore, or I don't know what the frig that word is. Because the regnant monarch is a minor or is absent or is incapacitated.
Gotcha. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, girl, I researched that shit. I'm like, because I looked and I'm like, isn't it supposed to be regent? And it was spelt differently. And I'm like, I don't know if this is correct. And so I researched it and I'm like, nope, it's regnant. And I even put,
I thought you just said it wrong. And I was like, I don't want her to be embarrassed like when this launches and get a bunch of people being like, it's regent. So I thought I'd call it out.
Okay, what was the word that we said last week? It was oh no, there was a word that we were saying, like we were having trouble saying, and then because you said it incorrectly the first time, and then I said it incorrectly the second time, thinking I was correct, and then I was re-listening to it on my way to work. You said it incorrectly the first time, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's this, and then I said something completely different. I'm like, that's wrong.
We're so smart.
Oh man, tired individuals. I wish I knew what the word was, because my husband pointed it out and he's like, you said that word wrong. I'm like, oh. listening to it on the way to work and I hear it and then I call him immediately. I'm like, yeah, I said it wrong.
Oh,
but
goodness.
I can't remember what the freaking word was. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. But, like, yeah, it was just super funny because you said it wrong and then I corrected you incorrectly.
Oh, goodness. All right,
Anyways.
back to your regnant.
Yeah. The first queen regnant of England. She was born in 1516 at the Palace of Placentia. Were we aware of that it was called the Palace of Placentia?
I was not, and that made me giggle.
Yeah. And I looked that up too, and it's a real place. I'm like, maybe this article is just wrong.
She's just making up words.
Yeah, no, it's a real place.
Okay.
As Ashley mentioned last week, she was the only child of King Henry VIII and Catherine of Aragon. And unfortunately, she was not the son that King Henry had wanted or needed. No, she was not. She was a stinky woman.
Oh, women.
Ugh, what will we do with them? At the age of 17, her father annulled his marriage to her mother, thus making it so she was never able to see her mother ever again. And she was basically illegitimized at that point, right?
Yep.
Henry then went on to marry Anne Boleyn, who was Catherine's maid of honor. And they had yet another daughter, who they named Elizabeth. But yeah, did not know Anne Boleyn was Catherine's maid of honor either, so that's kind of funny.
I knew she was like in her court, but I didn't know she was her maid of honor.
Yeah, how funky. Elizabeth wanted Mary declared illegitimate, which she succeeded in doing, as I mentioned, and it made her last in line for the throne at that point. Since she was a teen, Mary had been blessed with horrendous menstrual pains and irregular cycles, which, same here. Oh, yeah, no, they are not fun.
Sounds awful.
Oh, like, I'm sure hers were like 10,000 times worse than mine, but like, I used to black out.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it was fun. This later led to her physical and psychological stress, along with periods of depression. She did, however, eventually take the throne at the ripe age of 37, in which she married Philip of Spain, and she had hopes to conceive an heir at this point, since obviously she needed to also kind of secure her spot on the throne.
But man, 37 back then, she might as well have been 93.
I know, because they died pretty early on.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy, especially that she can like thinks that she can potentially have a kid at that age, right? So
yeah.
She was the first queen to take the crown for herself rather than just being the wife of a king, which kind of makes her a regnant, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
She put wow. I've read like 3 words ahead. She put religion above all else and sought to restore the Catholic Church, which had been turned Protestant at that point by, I believe, Edward. Plagued by the emotional distress her father had put upon her, she wished to seek love and approval from her husband, who did not necessarily reciprocate those feelings.
Aww.
And it's of note to mention that he was 10 years her junior.
Oh.
So basically all he wanted to do was uphold his end of their marriage deal, which was creating an heir. 2 months later, Mary was with child. However, false pregnancy rumors began to spread despite her belly and breasts growing. When the time came, no baby came, and Mary's belly began to deflate.
Yeah, I remember reading about that. It's so crazy.
Yeah, so basically the midwives essentially just thought that they got her due date wrong, so they just kept pushing it a month or 2 or 3 back, thinking that they just like got it wrong, but then all of a sudden her belly started to deflate. So they're like, huh, okay. This is actually a condition that can be called pseudocyesis. Yeah, pseudocyesis. Which means when a person is so determined to have a child that they essentially trick their body into thinking that it is, which results in all the regular symptoms of pregnancy minus the fetus, obviously.
Yeah.
But isn't that
When you think about the
crazy?
immense pressure that she was under back then to have a kid.
Yeah, especially at her age.
Yeah.
So I don't
Which
blame.
we would like to point out that nowadays that's not a big deal, but back then,
Back then, that was a big deal because they died when they were
yeah,
40. Like,
right. Nowadays, 37, whatevs.
yeah,
Popping
have
out kids left
babies,
and right if you want.
have babies at any age. I don't care.
Yeah.
But like, it's just crazy because she was about the age that she was supposed to die,
Yeah.
and then she's trying to push out a baby. So,
Yep.
anyways, so when she emerged from her like room, because they basically locked her up for like a few months, like once she was near her due date, they locked her up in her room until she had the baby. But obviously she didn't have the baby, so she emerged childless. And I mean, she kind of just like went into action, and she basically wanted to just like unite her people who were divided between being Catholic and Protestant. So she just wanted to accomplish something and not just sit in misery, I guess.
Yeah.
In doing this, she signed an act shortly before Christmas of 1554 where an estimated 240 men and 60 women were persecuted as Protestants and burned at the stake, which in turn earned her the name of Bloody Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Other potential origins of Bloody Mary are Elizabeth Bathory, or Bathory, I think.
Bathory sounds good to me.
Yeah. Who was supposedly convicted for murdering many young women so she could bathe in their blood. And
Ew.
I'd go further into her, but I want to cover her at some point, hopefully. So I'm not going to
Okay.
really go into her. But I think she was like basically like the Countess of Blood or something.
I feel like I vaguely remember hearing about her, so I'm super excited for that story because I remember it being pretty creepy.
It is really creepy. Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild ride.
So stay tuned.
Exactly. Or she was known as Mary Worth, who was an executed witch in the Salem trials, or Mary Queen of Scots.
Oh.
So I'm going to first go into Mary Queen of the Scots and kind of give like a little background on her and why she potentially might be classified as Bloody Mary.
Is she the one that the show Reign is after?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was such a good show.
See, and I stopped watching it after the first or second season.
I stopped watching it after, spoiler alert, Francis dies,
Yeah.
because I just loved him.
See, and I love...
He's in a new show, well, it's not new, it's called The Kingdom, and he plays a bad guy. I don't like it.
See, I really liked the guy that played bad, like Sebastian.
Oh, he was dreamy.
He was dreamy. Very dreamy.
Or is. I mean, he's still alive.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I just found that it like turned like too dramatic. So I'm like, I can't watch this anymore.
Gotcha.
So on to Mary Queen of Scots. While she was pregnant, her husband / cousin stabbed a man in front of her 56 times.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So you're obviously like traumatized. You're pregnant. Your emotions and hormones are running rampant. And then that happens in front of you.
Oh my gosh.
Following the murder, her husband / cousin died mysteriously, and people wondered if Mary was the one that killed him.
Dang. Well, all that inbreeding, probably something was a little off in all their heads.
Exactly, yes. After he died, she married one of the main suspects. Which is funny.
That's hilarious.
She then ran to her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I, for protection. But Elizabeth threw her in jail instead.
Yeah, she was not a fan.
No. Which is just like traumatizing. Like you go to your family for help and then they just shove you in a dungeon.
Yeah, I think she had some kind of claim to the English throne.
Yes,
so
she did.
Elizabeth thought that. Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't want her to take over her spot, essentially.
Right.
So Elizabeth did what any person did back then and sentenced Mary to death by beheading her.
Of course.
Like her father.
Taking a page out of her dad's book.
Exactly. Off with her head.
Yep.
Oh, this part's just horrible. So, have you like ever read about her beheading? Or heard about her
No.
beheading?
No.
So, essentially, the executioner that day was kind of new, not very good at it.
Oh,
And
gosh.
so it took him multiple attempts to cut her head off.
Oh my gosh.
And then, this is kind of funny. He went to go grab her head, but he wasn't aware that she had a wig on.
Oh gosh.
So her head fell and rolled away.
Oh. Talk about a bad day at work.
Right? Oh my goodness. So, yeah, that's the story of Mary, Queen of Scots, and why she might potentially be Bloody Mary.
That's a pretty traumatizing death, so.
Yes. And then we have Mary Bloodsworth / Worthington, or she goes by Worth. It just like depends on what variation, I guess. And they actually use that name in the Supernatural episode.
Oh, okay. That's the one they picked.
I think it was the girl that like went missing. Her name was Mary Worth or something. Or Worthington, something like that. So, because when I typed in her name, all that came up was a Supernatural episode. So, she lived in Massachusetts. She sold healing herbs, and she was so beautiful that people thought she was a witch.
Oh gosh.
And I literally wrote LOL in my notes. Because, you know, I'm lucky because I wouldn't be classified as a witch back then, so that's nice.
I was just going to say that, Jessica, we better be careful because they're going to think we're a witch.
I'm like thinking the complete opposite of myself. I would never be accused of being a witch. So girls in the village were disappearing at that point, so they thought Mary might have something to do with it. One village girl left her home one night in a trance, and no one could get her out of it, and they were screaming at her, trying to get her to stop. They noticed she was walking towards Mary's house, which had a mysterious glow around it, and the girl was also glowing. Does that remind you of any movie by chance?
Should it?
Halloween movie.
Oh, I've never seen any of the Halloween movies.
You've never seen Hocus Pocus?
Oh, Hocus Pocus. I thought you meant like the movie Halloween. And I was like, no. I don't like slashers. Hocus Pocus? When did they glow? Who glows? Oh, yeah. I'm there. I watch that movie every year, too. So
I do, too.
Think I would remember that.
I just watched Nightmare Before Christmas today. Which
such a good one, too.
I obviously posted on our TikTok because I'm like obsessed with spooky season. And like the poor like the sweet camera is like jiggling because I'm like sitting on my couch watching it, like jumping up and down, like mouthing the words, trying not to be vocal about it.
I've been watching like very like B-rated horror movies on like Amazon Prime and Netflix.
Oh, nice.
They're hit or miss, you know? Some of them are pretty good. Some of them are pretty bad. Hit or miss.
Yes. Oh, I know. I think that like, because like I actually didn't mind The Conjuring.
Oh my gosh, I love The Conjuring.
Like, it's pretty good. It's just I don't I look away a lot. Like, I wish that they didn't have the music and I could just be like surprised, but like then they have the music and I know something's coming, so then I just look away.
So I'm assuming that you didn't like the Paranormal Activities when they did the timer and then it would slow down when something was about to happen.
No, stupid. Dumb. But yeah, so those movies freak me out. Like I bought a video game. I think it's called Until Dawn.
And
I have to like turn the sound off because the music is so scary. Like, I know when
Why are we both such chickens? And yet here we are, like, loving spooky season and scary movies and horror things that we talk about.
I know. I was talking to a friend, like one of my coworkers, like my friend, and she's I was telling her that I'm like scared of zombies and stuff and like stuff that jumps out at me. And she's like, but you have a spooky podcast. I know, I can talk about it. I just don't like when shit like jumps out at my face. Not enjoyable.
See, I like all the fake stuff. I love scary movies are my favorite. I'll watch them year round. But I love scary movies. I love like haunted houses, all that stuff. I love it. But tell me that like something real happened, I'm like, nah, thanks.
Yeah, no, like zombies stress me out.
I'm okay with zombies.
They stress me out. So
I mean, I definitely think that there could be some kind of like disease that turns us all crazy, but like,
but not the
I
living
get eaten,
dead.
I get eaten.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways.
Anyways, the glowing house.
Yeah, the glowing child, the glowing house. Just before the girl was reached by the other villagers, it said that Mary took a broken piece of glass mirror, cut her hand, and then cursed the women of the village.
Ooh.
When she appeared in court for this crime that she was being accused of, the villagers noticed that she was pregnant.
Oh.
When she wouldn't reveal who the father was, it was obviously assumed that it was the devil's child.
Of course.
Yes. So, skip ahead like 20 seconds if you don't want to hear about this. So the villagers took it upon themselves to actually cut the baby out of her.
Oh my gosh.
Thus also ending Mary's life.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's another reason why people think it's her. That could be Bloody Mary that shows up in your bathroom mirror.
I feel like hers was the most traumatic, so I'm going to go with her.
Well, yeah, especially because she like even used the glass piece of mirror.
Yeah.
To cut her hand and curse the women, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to get into the game. We've already discussed it, like neither of us have really ever played it because we're just chicken. But for those of you that like don't really know what it is, you stand in your dark bathroom. A single lit candle is the only light source that you have because you're like the room needs to be dimly lit. You look into the mirror and you chant her name 3 times like Beetlejuice. It's said then that a ghost appears. Sometimes she's holding a deceased baby, and other times she promises to come after your baby.
Oh, gosh.
Other stories state that she can reach out of the mirror and scratch your face. The mirror drips blood, or she is then released from the afterlife to forever haunt you until you slowly go insane.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Super fun, right?
I would like to just have like a little scratch and then it'd be done. Like, I don't want you to haunt me the rest of my life.
Yeah. Some variations of this ritual include chanting her name 3 times or saying, I believe in Bloody Mary, or I killed your baby, Bloody Mary.
Oh, gosh.
Some theorists believe that this is a ritual for entering into womanhood as it does occur in the bathroom. Right.
Why is the place for women in the bathroom? I don't get.
Well, their menstrual blood, right? Like, and then she's
guess.
Bloody Mary, like Aunt Flo, Bloody Mary. So, Bloody Mary potentially stemmed from the 70s, like the game, because all the siblings were into the new age hippie stuff, spiritualism, etc. So then the younger siblings kind of caught on and were like, oh, hey, that seems kind of interesting.
Yeah, they wanted to be cool like their big siblings.
Exactly. So some other names that she kind of goes by are Bloody Bones, Hell Mary, Mary Worth, Mary Worthington, Mary Johnson, Mary Lou, Mary Jane, Sally, Kathy, and Agnes.
So,
yeah.
Sally, Kathy, and Agnes, where did those come from?
I don't know. Those are just some of the names.
Frank, Paul.
Yeah. But it's funny. It's like, okay. Some of the things that people have like kind of reported that have happened from playing the game is they've heard someone walking up and down the hallway when no one else was around.
Ew.
Bathroom taps have come on.
Ew.
The hall light has come on. The bathroom door is slammed open.
Ooh, wouldn't like that.
They'll hear someone drumming on the door, like the bathroom
Ooh.
door. They've had closet doors burst open. Bathroom curtains have caught on fire.
Holy crap.
Yeah. I mean, they're using a freaking candle, right? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's true. Probably did it themselves. Like, oh, it's
Exactly.
Bloody Mary.
yeah. Get so freaked out from like staring in the mirror that you like knock it over, right? So, people have come out of the bathroom with scars all over their body, which then vanish. Some have
Hey,
said,
that's you.
I know, right?
Maybe you're haunted.
Ooh, maybe. Wouldn't that be creepy? Oh, I don't like that. Ugh. Okay. Some say that she's thrown her baby at them through the mirror.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, her bloody baby. And some say that they've smelled rotting flesh, which well, I don't know how you know what the smell of rotting flesh smells like, but yeah. So, super fun.
Interesting.
So now I'm going to get into the, oh goodness gracious, sorry, the science behind the phenomenon.
Ooh.
So one is called strange face in the mirror illusion.
Okay.
So in order for this phenomenon to trigger, it's required that you stare at your reflection in a dimly lit room with the light behind your body and the mirror in the front. The individual behind this phenomenon is Giovanni Caputo. There was a test conducted to support his findings and were as follows. So I'm just going to quote the study, essentially.
Okay.
At the end of a 10-minute session of mirror gazing, the participant was asked to write what he or she saw in the mirror. The descriptions differed greatly across individuals, included A, huge deformations of one's own face, which was reported by 66% of the 50 participants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. B, a parent's face with traits that were changed, and that was 18%. And 8% of whom were still alive, and 10% were deceased.
Oh.
So they were seeing their parents' faces, and some of them were still alive, some of them were dead.
Oh.
C, an unknown person. So they were seeing someone that they didn't know at all. And that was 28%. There's a couple more. D, they saw an archetypical face such as that of an old woman, a child, or a portrait of an ancestor. And that was 28% as well. E, an animal face such as that of a cat, pig, or lion. That was 18%. Or F, fantastical and monstrous beings, and that was 48%.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty high percentage for that one.
Yeah, so it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Essentially, what happens is that our brain gets bored staring at the same thing for too long, and it eventually decides it's going to adapt what it's seeing into something different. So basically, it'll take your eyes and place them where your ears should be, or distorts your face into a completely different image. Sometimes it can be really scary and sometimes not so scary, but it's a mind warp nonetheless.
Yeah.
So,
oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So basically, your brain just gets lazy and it's like, okay, I'm just going to piece other pieces together here and here.
Let's try this.
Yeah. This doesn't look right. So let me just do this for you. And another part of this same study was understanding how the participants felt after watching their reflections undergo these changes. So they basically said the participants reported that apparition of new faces in the mirror caused sensations of otherness when the new face appeared to be that of another unknown person or strange other looking at him or her from beyond or within the mirror.
Okay.
So they just felt really uneasy.
Yeah.
All 50 participants experienced some form of this dissociative identity effect, at least for some apparition of strange faces, and often reported strong emotional responses in these instances. For example, some observers felt that the other watched them with an enigmatic expression, and that was a situation that they found astonishing. Some participants saw a malign expression on the other face and became anxious. Other participants felt that the other was smiling or cheerful and experienced positive emotions in response. The apparition of deceased parents or of archetypal portraits produced feelings of silent query. Apparition of monstrous beings produced fear or disturbance. Dynamic deformations of new faces, like pulsations or shrinking, smiling, or grinding, produced an overall sense of inequitude for things out of control.
Where did you get this script?
I'm quoting it from the research study. Grinding. Oh my goodness gracious. Like, I'm like, wondering if it just meant like their teeth were grinding. Like,
That's what I would assume.
yeah.
That's still funny.
It is very funny. Okay, we're almost done. This same phenomenon explains why you currently don't feel your clothes against your skin or why you don't see the end of your nose, and sometimes are able to drown out noises around you because you're focused on the here and now. Example, listening to me speak about this, you're focused on what's going on right in front of you as opposed to what's around you. Or, you know, you're focused on driving and I'm just kind of in the background if you're listening to this on your way to work, right? So basically your brain cancels all of these other things out in order to keep you focused at the task at hand.
Okay.
There's also another phenomenon called the Troxler effect. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll know what it is in a second. So essentially what it is, it's described as above. You stare at an object for an extended period of time and your neurons cancel out and make the image it's looking at to appear blurry or distorted until you look around or blink. So,
okay, yeah.
So this can also happen when you stare into someone's eyes, like the same thing with the mirror. If you're looking into someone's eyes for a long extended period of time in the dark, like a dimly lit room, it can also start distorting their face.
Oh, creepy.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've seen it online before. You stare at a dot that's in the middle of a page or a circle, and then the circle will start disappearing, essentially, the outline of the circle, until you like blink or look around. And then it'll come back. So that's basically what the Troxler effect is.
Okay.
Because your brain is focused on the dot and not on the unimportant things that are surrounding it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So have you ever like tried that before? Like the whole dot thing?
Yeah, like online. I mean, I haven't done it looking into someone's eyes before, but like the dot online, yeah.
Have you ever done like the mirror thing either? Like not even just like the Bloody Mary game, but just like staring at yourself for a long period of time?
No, because mirrors creep me out.
Me too. I also have not tried it because I'm like terrified of what might happen.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously I use mirrors, but like to stare at them for like long periods of time, no thank you.
No, thank you. So anyways, that was my Bloody Mary story. And kind of like the science behind it and the inspirations for the game, but
I loved it. That was so
Yay,
interesting.
good.
Especially the science. It's super interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating to know that it's like mental, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. What your mind can do is crazy.
yeah, exactly. So
yeah, for sure.
Anyways, yay.
Woohoo!
Our Mary episode.
Yeah, so this will come out the first full week of October, or the first Sunday of October. So this starts our spooky season.
Yay.
Next episode, Jessica will be talking about Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
And I'll be talking about the Candyman serial killer. So each week we have a little spooky topic for Halloween month.
And I'm excited for the Candyman killer because I don't think I've heard of him.
He's super messed up.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about him. And then what are we doing the weeks after? Do you remember?
I have it written down.
You're doing H.H. Holmes?
Yeah. That's what I'm doing.
And I'm going to be doing my second part. It's basically going to be like my first part is on Vlad the Impaler. And then the second part is going to be on vampires and their origins behind the story of them, which, you know, is essentially Vlad the Impaler to bring on the whole Dracula story. And then I'm going to be talking about this serial killer that was thought to be a vampire just because of how He murdered his victims, and then also this girl that was being blamed for her family's disappearance, even though she was dead and buried already.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. And then the last week, I'm going to be covering the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine.
Yes.
And
Love them.
Ashley is going to be covering. Ashley's going to be covering Amityville, which I'm like,
Yeah. Our little Warrens episode.
yeah, super exciting. And I've actually like been to the Amityville house, like outside of it, obviously, but my husband and I were in New York City, and we're like, oh, let's go to Long Island and see if we can find the Amityville house. And it was like surprisingly
That's
very
awesome.
easy to find.
Yeah, I've heard that it's like not hard. It's in a pretty nice little
It
area.
is in a really nice area, and it's like right on the water, but there are obviously like no trespassing signs and stuff, but it was very cool to see.
Yeah, I'm excited for our stories. It's gonna be awesome. If you wanna follow us along on other avenues, I don't know what that sentence was. We have social media.
We're good with words.
If you want to follow us on TikTok, we are Histories and Mysteries Pod, because you can't put podcast, that's too long. So it's Histories and Mysteries Pod. And then we are on Instagram and Facebook as Histories and Mysteries. And you can email us at historiesandmysteries515@gmail.com.
Yay. Email us anything, like if you have fun stories, topic ideas, suggestions on how we can improve anything. We're open to any suggestions and anything you have to offer. And then if you want to help us out, you can rate us or write a review for us on Apple Podcast. I think Google Play does it too. I know Spotify you can't, which is so silly to me, but basically just rate and review wherever you can, because it helps us out a lot.
We would love it. It really
And
does.
like, thank you for all of our new followers and new listeners. Like, we've almost reached 100 followers on Instagram, which I know isn't like a lot, but it's still pretty exciting for us. So like, we really, really appreciate people following us and listening to us. So
yeah.
So we hope that you guys have a super fun week now that it's spooky season, and we look forward to bringing you 2 new stories next week.
Bye.